Okay, let's go over here to, 1 second. Note Chaf Ches. There is a divine light that comes down to the world through each mitzvah, because each mitzvah is called the limb of the king. The 248 mitzvahs are called the 248 limbs of the king. Kodesh Baruch Hu. What does it mean? Why is mitzvah called the limb of the king? How is mitzvah compared to a limb? Just like our limbs are vessels to the various energies of the soul, the eye is able to contain within it the power to see, and the ear is able to contain within it the power to hear. So do the various mitzvahs are vessels for various kinds of divine light. So the mitzvah of tzedakah, for example, is a mitzvah that draws God's kindness to the world. Kindness is brought to the world through tzedakah. You're kind, it causes God's kindness. It's the arousal from below causes arousal from above. You are kind. In the language of Alter Rebbe and Tanya in chapter 17 of Gersa Kedesh, when you draw down kindness and favor to someone else in life, that brings some of that to you. You bring God's kindness to the world. So the mitzvah, the tzedakah, has in it Hashem's light. What kind of light? Depending on what the mitzvah is. Tzedakah brings down the light of tzedakah, light of kindness. Tefillin is another kind of light. Each mitzvah brings down a different kind of light of Hashem. Number 2, then there is the impact of the mitzvah on the body, on the animal soul that did the mitzvah, and on the various things the mitzvah was done with. There is the coins that you gave to tzedakah, or as we say in South Africa, the coins, right, Zev? Anyways, so picking on Zev today. So there is the animal soul in the body and the objects that you do the mitzvah with. Then Hashem's essence is above the form of man, which means that not only is Hashem not physical, but also when we talk about different kinds of light, about Atzilus, that's not relevant to Hashem's essence. Next column, and therefore, speaking about the limbs of Hashem, the various lights that descend to the world, that's not relevant. However, the fact that we make the world a home for Hashem, that's something that satisfies God's deepest desire. Because Hashem's deepest desire is we should have a home in this lowest world. As I mentioned yesterday, the Alter Rebbe says, there are various explanations in Jewish philosophy and Kabbalah for the purpose of creation. And one explanation is to express God's greatness. Like another explanation is because Hashem wants to be kind to his creatures. But the Alter Rebbe says the purpose of creation is Hashem had a desire. And about a desire, you can't ask a question. Now, the Alter Rebbe is not disagreeing with the other explanations. The Alter Rebbe is referring to something else than the other explanations are. The other various tzaddikim who revealed purposes for creation, they were talking from the perspective of various levels within the spiritual cosmos. From the perspective of chesed of Atzilus, let's say, then chesed's purpose is chesed. From the perspective of Hashem's essence, what's the purpose of creation? Now, 1 second, you just changed the conversation. Talking about Hashem's essence, then all of the different purposes and explanations aren't relevant. We're talking about Hashem's essence, who's beyond logic and reason. So concerning Hashem's essence, it says, a taivas ken kasha. A desire, you can't ask a question about desire. Why Hashem wanted, you don't know. What he wanted, you do know. He wanted a home. And we could also relate to this desire. Hashem built us with the same desire. The reason we want a home, the reason we feel we need to have a home is because built into us is Hashem's desire to have a home in this world. So Hashem's desire for a relationship with us and his desire to have a home here is something that touches his very core, so to speak. And therefore, the fact that you took your coins and your body, your animal soul was impacted by this mitzvah, it means something very, very deep to Hashem's very core. It touches him, so to speak. It's not that it's natural. It's not that coins and mitzvah has a natural impact on him. Hashem is beyond. Is there anything missing in the king's house? Hashem doesn't miss anything. Is not lacking anything. But Hashem chose to desire to have a home in this world. He chose, so to speak, to be vulnerable. He chose to enter a relationship with us, and therefore He cares. He chose to care. Hashem wanted to have we should be tzir fabrius. Pointing out for a second, the full text of the Gemara is: does Hashem care if we slaughter the animal from its neck or from its back? The whole point of mitzvahs is to purify creations. The simple reading of the Gemara, and also the Hasidic meaning of the Gemara in other places in Chassidus is: does Hashem care? Of course He doesn't care. The purpose of mitzvahs is only for us to be purified. The Rebbe is translating it differently in this Maimer. The Rebbe is saying, does Hashem care? Of course He cares. He cares not about the fact that a mitzvah draws God's kindness. That's something else. That's Hashem made a mechanism in the spiritual cosmos that our kindness draws His kindness. That's true. But the fact that it touches God's essence, that's because a mitzvah purifies us. A mitzvah was given to purify us, and He cares about that. He wants us to be purified. That's one way of explaining what the Rebbe says here. Again, this Maimer wasn't edited, and therefore there is room for more interpretation and room for more error. But here's another interpretation of these two concepts that Rebbe mentions. So then the statement of the sages that we said, that the mitzvahs were given to purify us, it's not that it's only for us. Rather, Hashem cares about us being purified. He cares about the fact that we here, Neanderthals, made a home for Hashem. That matters to Him. That's one way of explaining this statement of the sages and what the Rebbe is saying here. Here's another explanation. Another way to explain these two concepts, that our service itself, the details aren't important to God's essence, but the impact is important. Another way of explaining this is that both of those sentences are referring to the animal soul. Number one, Aveda pratis in Chol Mitzvahs in Meguf Neshabamis Shinyana Shechnua VeZdai Shal Neshabamis. In next page, on the bottom, under the line Hatoich Shal Mitzvah, and Beis Bitul Neshabamis Nifal Dikim Tzakash Baruch. Every mitzvah, the Rambam writes, Maimonides writes, is meant l'sakan hadeus li'asha amaisim. Every mitzvah is meant to correct us, meant to fix us, meant to purify us. For example, the mitzvah of honoring your parents is meant to give you a sense of gratitude. So every mitzvah has a way that it impacts the animal soul and changes and purifies and makes us edel. Rabbi Zeligson's father, Dr. Zeligson, Rebbe's doctor, his yahrzeit was on Sunday, I think. The Rebbe said about him that he studied the revealed parts of Torah, and that caused his body to be purified. And he studied the inner dimension of Torah, and that caused his neshama to be purified. So there's something that the performance of mitzvahs does for our animal soul to elevate us, to purify us, to make us more connected to what the content of the mitzvah is. Not just we should do the mitzvah, but that we should identify. Like the Rebbe once said about kavanas hamitzvahs, the intent you have doing the mitzvah. The Rebbe said the goal of the intent of the mitzvah, knowing the meaning of what you're supposed to think about when you do a mitzvah, the goal isn't just that you should know something, not just, the meaning of this mitzvah is because of A, B, and C. The reason you're supposed to know, the reason why Hashem revealed to us the reasons for mitzvahs is in order as those durchnemen, so that should permeate us. So we should be taken by the kavanas hamitzvah. The kavanas hamitzvah should take us. We should identify this is what the mitzvah is about, to bring us somewhere. We should go along with it. We should go on a journey with the mitzvah. The mitzvah should take us somewhere. That's the goal of the mitzvah vis-a-vis the animal soul. then there is something else. The animal soul, besides identifying with what God said and identifying with the meaning and content and theme of the mitzvah, there's another element that happens to our animal soul, and that is the animal soul is now subservient to God. It pushes away its own will, do Hashem's will. Our personal service of Hashem with our body, with our animal soul, that's not relevant to God's essence. But the fact that we're bottled, the fact that we push our will aside for the sake of Hashem, that does matter more to Atzmus. Like, for example, by the desire of a human king, the content of the command itself might be insignificant to the king. But the fact that people are listening to the king, that the king does care about. The details, what the king asks for, he's not so interested. But the fact that someone did listen to him or didn't listen to him, that matters to him. So when we say that the essence of Hashem cares about our mitzvahs, what about the mitzvah is negea to Atzmus? It's the fact that a Yid accepts upon himself Hashem as his king, and he fulfills what Hashem says. Rabbi Ashkenaz he brings sources for the first explanation. The second explanation over here doesn't bring any sources. However, I do remember a mimer, the Rebbe. I remember this mimer because it was only published right after Gimel Tammuz. It was a new revelation. It was never printed before. Very powerful discourse, very short discourse. It was mimer Rosh Hashanah, I think Memhei, and I remember. The Rebbe said that Atzmus, that God Himself begs a Jew, Tamichuni Alechem, please crown me as your king. It says in Rosh Hashanah we're supposed to crown Hashem as our king. So it's not just Hashem asks us, it's something He wants us to do. He cares about it. It's negeya. It matters to Him that we crown Hashem as our king. So when we say that mitzvahs matter to the Eibishter, what matters is the relationship, that a Yid listens to the Eibishter. So these are two ways of explaining what the Rebbe is referring to here. And maybe we'll share some more ways later on, maybe tomorrow. But for right now, we have now some perspective of what the Rebbe is saying here, that our mitzvahs, what Chassidus says it does matter, and what Chassidus says it doesn't matter. One explanation is that the fact that you're drawing down God's kindness, so you're drawing down God's kindness, but not God's essence. That's vis-a-vis the content of the mitzvah. Then there is another element of the mitzvah, the fact that mitzvah brought Hashem's will to be fulfilled. He wants a home in this world. That's something that matters to God's essence. The impact of Hashem being revealed in this world, which is the whole point of why He made the world, so Mashiach should come and Hashem should be revealed here, that's something He cares about. So they gave tzedakah. So the fact that tzedakah brought God's kindness to the world, so of course we care about that a lot because we're impacted about that. We're impacted. Hashem cares and loves us, and therefore, and we're Hashem's only child, so we shouldn't say that Hashem doesn't care about that either. Hashem, we're His children, so Hashem certainly cares about us, and as we say in our prayers every day, whenever they have pain, He has pain. But regarding the grand scheme of things, and what Hashem's intent in creation is, there is something more satisfying to Hashem about the fact that the physical was elevated to the spiritual more than the particulars of what content the mitzvah is. That's one way of explaining what the Rebbe is saying here. Another way of explaining what the Rebbe is saying here is that the details of how our animal soul was elevated doesn't touch Hashem's essence, but the bittul, the fact that we accepted upon ourselves Hashem as our king, that is negeya. That's something that Hashem's essence is affected by, so to speak. Any questions before we go on, or anyone have any answers? Okay.
Yeah, it seems like I thought we keep on saying that you need to have kavana, and kavana are the wings that bring it up. So if you're only having bittul and no kavana, how is it reaching to the essence if it only can get to the essence with the wing, which is the kavana? So it seems like we're going in circles here.
Okay, you're getting a good point, and I want to address your point. So here's the thing. Hashem's intent is not only that his essence should be here. Hashem's intent is that his essence should be revealed here. And while our bittul, while our subservience to Hashem reaches Hashem's essence, but Hashem doesn't just want his essence to be here, to be downloaded here, so to speak. He wants his essence to be fully revealed, the full light of it, light. And the light, the revelation, is through kavanah. Let's just put this in perspective. There's nothing Hashem asks us to do that doesn't matter to him. Hashem asks us for kavanah. The kavanah is also negay and atzmos. Our intent is also pertinent to God's essence. Otherwise, he wouldn't ask us to do it. But the mitzvah itself, without the kavanah, does do something. The mitzvah itself, without the kavanah, does do something. If you remember, we once learned the sikha about Korach. Korach was asking Moshe Rabbeinu, why do we need someone like you, Moshe Rabbeinu? What's the point of you? If a mitzvah is the whole point in creation, to bring God, to make Hashem wants a home in the lowest realm, and that's why Hashem didn't want the Jewish people to stay in the desert. He wanted them to go to Israel because he wants a home in the lowest realm, and the desert wasn't low enough. He wanted them to go to a physical place without the miracles and to make this world a home for Hashem. And that's why the spies who said, let's stay in the desert, were wrong. So Korach says, if that's true, then why do we need Moshe Rabbeinu? Why do we need to have a tzaddik? What's unique about a tzaddik? The tzaddik puts on the same tefillin that we do. So Moshe Rabbeinu responded to Korach, in the morning, I will let you know the answer. So Rashi says, why did Moshe say to wait till the morning? Rashi says two explanations. Explanation number one is that Korach, you ate some bad breakfast today, you're in a bad mood. Maybe tomorrow you'll calm down and we'll talk tomorrow. Explanation number two, Moshe Rabbeinu told Korach that Hashem made in the world, he made morning and he made night. There are borders in the world, and therefore you can't change them. You want to be a Kohen Gadol, you can't change them. That's what Rashi says. That's what Rashi explains this. The problem with what Rashi says is that it seems that both these explanations could be easily challenged. Number one, if you're worried about Korach's bad breakfast, then wait till he has dinner. Why don't Moshe say to Korach, tonight Hashem will let you know what's going on? Number two, the second explanation of Rashi, you want to point out there are borders in creation, so point out the border of night. Why are you pointing out the border of day specifically? Why does Moshe say in the morning Hashem will let it? Well, Hashem made morning, you can't change morning. Moshe could have said Hashem made night, you can't change night. Why did Moshe specifically point to the morning? So the Rebbe says that there's a deep meaning over here, deep sentiment. The Moshe is telling Korach is, you're right that a mitzvah is about satisfying God's essence, the will of Hashem's essence, and the mitzvah draws God's essence to the world. But Hashem's intent in the home in this world is he wants to have a luminous home. And the luminous home can only be fulfilled with kavanah, with the intent we have in mitzvahs. So therefore, boiker, there has to be morning. God made night and God made day, but boiker v'yeda havaya, but Hashem desires light. Hashem wants this home to be a luminous, beautiful home. And that's why Moshe says, you'll do tshuva if we wait till the morning. Why? You can do tshuva at night too. Moshe was telling Korach, there's two ways of doing tshuva. You could do tshuva and you'll do it if you're afraid of punishment. And many people do tshuva because they're afraid of punishment. Many people do tshuva because they're afraid of consequences. And the whole Yiddishkeit, the whole Judaism is self-serving. It's all about, they're serving themselves and they're afraid of what, they're waiting for God's other foot to drop and they're scared and therefore they do tshuva and they want to, so that is tshuva. But there is another kind of tshuva. There's tshuva out of love. You care about being close to the Eibusher. You got to know that Hashem wants a luminous tshuva. He wants you to return to him with love. And there are borders in the world. Hashem made day and Hashem made night. They're both mitzvahs. A mitzvah is a mitzvah, whether it's a luminous mitzvah, whether it's a dark mitzvah, whether a mitzvah is done for a selfish motive, whether a mitzvah is done for a selfless motive. However, Hashem desires light. And the good news is that even if you have kavanah today on a mitzvah that you did yesterday, or you learned the same piece of Torah today that you learned yesterday with the wrong kavanah, it elevates it. Think about this, Ev. You're a businessman, I think, no? So there's imagine the following. Imagine in 2020, you had a business deal and it really messed up and you lost a lot of money in it. And now 2021, you do a business deal and boom, light, it's raining. So Alter Rebbe says, not only do you get 2021, but 2020 is also elevated. The fact that the right kavanah doing the mitzvah today, and the right kavanah in the same Torah subject that you learned chitas last year, the kavanah you have now, not only does it elevate the chitas of today, it elevates the chitas of last year, the same Torah subject that you learned last year as well. So our kavanah certainly is pertinent to God's intent in creation. The kavanah causes Hashem's essence not just to be here, but to be here in a revealed way to a luminous, beautiful home. Barry, are you showing me your face because you just want to say hello? Thank you.
I have to tell you something.
Go ahead.
My wife sent your wife an email addressed to you so you could give it to her
Okay.
last night. Okay.
I'll send her my email address. Great day to Beryl, great day to Zev, great day David, great day Barry, great day Dr. Bressman, great day Mordechai, great day Jeff, great day Jonathan. Yitrot.